Hello everybody and welcome to the first in our series of financial planning webinars. Starting from today, we'll be discussing a different topic every 2 weeks to help give you clarity about your finances and to create the perfect financial planning strategy. If you have any questions about today's presentation or any general queries, please feel free to contact us by email. Our email address is hello@ascadenewington.co.uk, or alternatively you can contact me via my LinkedIn page, and my profile is on screen now. Okay, so let's get into today's topic, which is sensible spending and saving strategies. I wanted to start here because it's a really simple, easy to understand subject area, but when we take on new clients, so few of them have a proper structure and strategy in place about their saving and spending habits, and it's something I always take time to discuss early on in our relationship. You can see on screen here the topics we're going to be covering off today. We'll be talking about spending, saving, building your emergency fund, goal-based savings, and then at the end what we call the interesting stuff, which is what we do after the emergency fund has been established. Now, we all have a certain level of monthly expenditure, and this is usually dependent on our level of income, our family situation and our lifestyle. I'm not going to tell everybody today that they need to cut back on the things they enjoy spending money on, although certainly a lot of us could benefit from reining in certain elements of our expenditure. If you work hard and you earn a decent salary, it's only right that you should be able to spend some of that hard-earned money on doing the things that make you happy. What is essential though is that we set ourselves a budget each month for discretionary spending and we stick to it. The easiest way that I've found to do this is to create a simple Excel spreadsheet to list down what's coming in and what goes out every month. This is the spreadsheet that I use with my clients, and we've got Max and Sarah here who are made up clients that we're going to use as an example and a bit of a case study today. Now on the spreadsheet we've got the monthly net incomes at the top left here, and along the rest of the left hand side there's a long list of all their committed monthly outgoings, so all the direct debits and standing orders and recurring card payments. So really these are all the things that are going to come out of their account month in, month out, whether they leave the front door or not. So in this example we have £8,206 net coming in each month and £4,024 going out, leaving a difference of £3,582 that's currently uncommitted. Now Max and Sarah have worked out what they spend on average on a month for discretionary expenditure, and that they think comes in at about £1,500, which means they've got £2,082 a month that's not being taken up by either committed expenditure or discretionary spending, and I'll come back to this in a moment. Now what I recommend Max and Sarah do is to move £1,500 a month from their main account into another bank account. We can now refer to these two accounts as the bill account and the spending account. They'll get their salaries paid into their bill account, because we're going to use this to feed the spending account and the savings account, and we'll talk about the savings a little bit later on. It's important that they set up a standing order to move that £1,500 automatically on payday, so there's no opportunity to use the bill account for any spending. This just breaks that habit of using their bill account at all at any time in the month. There are a number of online only bank accounts available now, and these are perfect for setting up the spending account. Or you may wish to simply open another current account with your existing bank. It's entirely up to you how you do this. The idea now is that you spend from the spending account and you don't touch the bill account at all. Assuming you've been very thorough with the figures you've put in when you're doing your spreadsheet for your committed expenditure, the account will run down, in Max and Sarah's case, down to £2,082 left in it by the following payday. This means you won't have to keep tabs daily on what's going on in the bill account, although I'd suggest that in the first couple of months you do keep a regular eye on what's going on in there, just to check that you've included all of your outgoings. What you do need to be keeping an eye on is your spending account, because this is where your day-to-day debit card transactions and cash withdrawals are going to be coming from. Doing it in this way will show you exactly how much money you have left to spend each month, and it will help you make better decisions about what you're spending your money on. If you look and you see you've only got £500 left in the spending account, and maybe you've got a few nice things booked in for the next couple of weeks, you're going to realise that you cannot afford to spend £300 on that impulse buy, or upgrading your phone, or a trip to John Lewis, or whatever normally eats away at our bank balance. It's about breaking that link between what our overall bank balance is and what we actually have to spend. For Max and Sarah, as we saw, they've got £1,500 a month, which equates to about £375 a week to spend on whatever they want. So it's important for them to be spending it in a way that's going to make them happiest, and not to waste any of it on things they're not getting any value from. Again, it's not about depriving ourselves of enjoyment, but let's be realistic about what we can actually afford to spend, and not plough through every penny that's available to us. This brings us on to saving, and the first area I want to cover here is what I'm most passionate about, which is the emergency fund. Now, we all need an emergency fund. One thing that the pandemic has shown us is how quickly circumstances can change, and how much these are out of our control. Anyone who's been furloughed will undoubtedly understand how vital it is to have a cash buffer, and I'm sure particularly the people that didn't have one. An emergency fund is a pot of cash set aside that you can use in an emergency, and it's as simple as that. I too say to all of my clients, an emergency fund is the bedrock of any sound financial plan. Everybody's situation is different, and the amount you need to set aside will depend on various factors, such as how secure your job or income is, or your family situation. But as a general rule, we should hold a minimum of 3 months committed outgoings in instant access cash. Taking Max and Sarah as an example, their committed outgoings are £4,624 a month. So using that 3 times rule we spoke about earlier, they need at least £13,872 in cash. I want to give an example here about why these savings are so important, and given the recent situation with coronavirus, I'm going to use that as an example. So Max is employed on an annual salary of £80,000. He was furloughed in March this year, and his employer would only pay him the government minimum amount, which at the time was 80% of pay, capped at £2,500 a month. So he went from earning £4,586 a month down to £2,500. Sarah unfortunately wasn't so lucky, and her employer folded in April and she lost her job. So totally out of the blue and through no fault of their own, they've seen their income fall from £8,206 a month down to £2,500. As we saw earlier on, their committed outgoings are £4,624 a month, so suddenly they have a £2,124 a month shortfall. Luckily, they'd taken some advice and they'd already built up an emergency fund of over £13,872. And doing a quick calculation, this would cover the shortfall for just over 6 months. Obviously, in real life, they would likely to have applied for the 6-month mortgage holiday that was available, and that would have cut down their expenses considerably, but still not down to the level required. And this hasn't given them any money for discretionary expenditure. Normally in these sorts of circumstances, they're likely to cut back on almost everything that was unnecessary, and of course there wasn't anywhere open at the time to actually spend money during the lockdown. So although £13,000 may sound like a lot of money to have set aside in cash, we can see how easily this is depleted. Clearly, if you haven't got any savings at all, then building up 3 months of outgoings is going to take you a bit of time, but it's vitally important, so I strongly recommend that you make this a priority. One thing that we need to cover quickly is the issue of debt. We have a webinar in a couple of weeks' time talking about debt, so I don't want to go into too much detail today, but if you do have high interest debt, such as a credit card or store card, where you aren't already clearing the whole balance each month, then clearing this really is your number one priority. If there's anybody in this situation, please feel free to email me and we can arrange a time to have a quick chat on the phone to discuss your situation. But for the purpose of this webinar, we're working on the basis that you don't have any high interest debt outstanding. For Max and Sarah, they'd be able to build up the required £13,872 in just under 6 months. They have surplus income of £2,082 a month, and I'd recommend that they put all of their surplus income towards their emergency fund until they've built up the required balance. One thing I want to say again here is that it's so important that you set up that standing order to take care of this regular saving on payday. For most people, unless the savings automatic, it's not going to happen. We suggest this even to our very well paid clients. Get it out on payday, you don't even notice it's gone, straight into savings. Sometimes with new clients, we create the long-term planning strategy, but we defer everything for 6 months while the client builds up this emergency pot. We'll usually talk every couple of months to check in with them and make sure they're putting away what they need to, and then we sit down again once his cash reserve has been achieved. There's no point in committing any funds to the long-term plan when the short-term stuff hasn't been sorted. I will talk very briefly about goal-based savings. This is just really obvious stuff here. Goal-based savings may include things like a holiday, home improvements, maybe a new kitchen or bathroom, or maybe a house move. The easiest way to save for these things is to work out how much you need, when you need it by, and simply divide one into the other. But saving for these things over a period of time should stop you having to use credit cards or loans, which can carry very high levels of interest. After the emergency fund has been established, we can start working on the interesting stuff. Now this could include building a life savings pot, making overpayments to your mortgage, buying a rental property, investing in a new business. Really, the possibilities are endless. And what you do will depend on your personal situation and what your long-term objectives are. For many of our clients, we create an investment portfolio using tax-efficient wrappers such as ISAs and pensions wherever possible. We've got a whole session on this coming up, and there'll be loads of information in there about this topic. Whatever your long-term strategy looks like, I'm going to say it again, it's vital you continue to automatically save or invest this money by setting up a standing order to come out on payday. But for Max and Sarah, by creating a structure around how they spend money, they've been able to gain short-term security via their emergency fund and long-term security by investing a couple of £1,000s a month, potentially for many years ahead. And this is simply using the money that they already had at their disposal. And that's money that previously they were probably simply spending because they didn't have a grip on what was going on. Okay, so before we move on to our summary, we've got on screen here the link to download the template for the outgoings and spending spreadsheet that I showed you earlier on. Please feel free to go online and start using that. I'm sure it will give you much greater clarity over your outgoings. And to recap today's session, you need to work out a realistic budget for your monthly discretionary spending. Move this amount from your main account to a separate spending account. Set up a standing order to come out on payday so that it happens automatically. Build up an emergency fund of at least 3 months outgoings. Use your unallocated income to build this pot as quickly as possible. Again, set up a standing order so it comes out on payday and make it automatic. And then once you've done this and established your emergency fund, then you can focus on the long-term planning by using that unallocated income to build a life-changing financial planning strategy. Our session in a fortnight's time is about whether or not you should overpay your mortgage, and these are the topics we're going to be covering off. That's all for today's presentation. Thank you for attending, and I hope you found the content useful. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to get in touch. The email address is on the next screen. And similarly, if you'd like a free consultation about your personal finances, then again contact us at the same email address and we'll arrange a time to speak. Thanks for attending today, and have a great day.